All right, so TBest has a query tool where you can select routes, patterns, segments, and stops by specific attributes. Those attributes include service type attributes like headway, service, revenue hours, speeds, route cost, stops served, route type, estimated ridership, direct boardings, transfer boardings, efficiency per service mile, observed ridership for your ABC data, socioeconomic coverage, so total population, share of low-income households, zero-car households, et cetera. And then you can also filter by service period, so weekday, AM peak, Saturday, Sunday. So different levels of selection criteria that have to do with all facets of what TBES kind of includes in, for transit service and markets and performance. Okay, so you launch the tool through this query tool button on the main TBES toolbar, and it launches where you can construct and build a query statement, and the query statement executes. In this case, it's route headway that's less than or equal to 30 against the routes, and it will select all of the routes that meet that criteria. And it will also select them not only in the main map, but also give you a summary of not just that variable, but all of the variables that are associated with that each route in this case. So it gives you the full listing of variables, which is very helpful. You can export it to Excel and you can use it outside of TBEST as well. Okay, so just building the query statement using just criteria. So you have a category in this case, which is our routes or patterns or segments or stops. You can select the attribute or multiple attributes, or one at a time actually, that you want to select for. You say, is it equal to or less than or not equal to or greater than, or other SQL-based operators you can plug in. You give it a value, so there it provides you with a list of preloaded domain values that are available for that particular variable, or you can write in a custom value, and then you would also filter for the service period. Okay. All right, so here is the output. For example, we mentioned this route headway less than or equal to 30. The query results are here. You notice that it gives you all kinds of information about the results of the query. And this list goes on into many socioeconomic variables, all of this exportable to Excel. So basically, this is one of the places where you can get a lot of variables at once compiled for at the route level or the pattern, segment, or stop level that are very explanatory about that route, right? Another place where you can get that information. You can export it to Excel or to ArcGIS Online or mobile geodatabase. When you export the routes to a mobile geodatabase, or ArcGIS Online, it compiles the route geometry into a single record, right? So all of the lines that make up a route, it combines them into a single record so that all the attributes aren't, kind of split up between multiple segments. It's all just one record. So it's great for creating maps and reports based off that kind of single record type of feature. Okay, so just some example query statements that would be for some diverse type of planning applications. So first of all, we have our stop audit, where we have maybe you generate a query to find bus shelter signs and benches. So generators and amenities equal to shelter A or bus stop sign and bench. So you have multiple amenities at one stop, and that would select all those stops that meet that criteria. Determine transit activity centers or major hubs where you have a transfer station, you have a lot of arrivals, and you have a lot of transfer opportunities. Basically, building that kind of criteria statement. Maybe filter for service relative to the system average or Title VI to outreach to riders with different primary language. So your share of limited English proficiency is less than or equal to 10, and the estimated boardings is greater than 20. Categorization of service or route design guidelines. So you may want to specify all fixed route serving in residential areas where percent household without autos is greater than 15%, population is greater than 100, should have bus stops at every 1/2 mile. So you would run this type of query to determine that. Notice that it has this distance from previous stop variable. So that's also part of the network that you can query on. Define new measure of emerging markets or transit orientation index. So this is building a query that selects all stops with young people who live in zero-car households who also live in multifamily dwelling units. So this is the query statement to query out the stops that have that type of demographic. Okay. Okay, so the queries folder in the TBEST Explorer window is where you would save queries, right? So that's where they're housed when you save them. So here's the Save button on the query builder. So if you've developed a query that you want to keep and you want to apply across multiple scenarios, so of course, all of what you're doing here can be applied on a scenario by scenario basis. So if you save a query and then you reapply it over multiple scenarios, then you will get different results per scenario. So it's a way of evaluating your different scenario and network makeups as well. So when you save it, it's stored under the queries folder. So we have some sample queries here for the Gatorville system. You can load them as well, but you can also just double click on them here and it will load up the query tool and you'll be able to execute the query. Okay, so query outputs, we mentioned this. You can export out to Excel. So here is the formatted Excel export. You can also, whenever you select them, it selects in this list, but also selects in the map. And if whatever you're selecting, if it stops, it will select the stops in TBEST in the main map, right? So both of them are selected. Yeah, so Excel or ArcGIS Online or into mobile geodatabase. Okay, so let's do an exercise using the query tool. All right, so let's run through this query tool exercise. So 8.0 query tool, and use the query tool to select stops by a service efficiency attribute. So we're going to open the fall 2024 network scenario. And we're just going to open the query tool so that it's this button up in the upper left corner by the Save button. All right, and query tool opens. So in our setup, we're going to select the category as route pattern stops. And our attribute will be headway route. So there are two headway options, just so you know. One is route, one is pattern. So there is a headway on the pattern that will be different from the headway on the route. So basically it's interval for the pattern and headway for the route because it's just a single pattern that will have a defined interval where headway kind of combines multiple patterns and their intervals together. Okay. All right, so we want headway route equal to or less than or equal to 25. So we select less than or equal to, and we see that we have all of the headways for all of the stops that are available in this list. We do have 25 here, so we can select it. If it wasn't there, we could write it in. And the service period is weekday. Notice that we could kind of ignore our in-service results. So we could say we don't really care whether it's in service or not. In this case, it has to be because it's on a headway variable, which is a service variable. So we can just add this statement that we're constructing to the query. So it converts this to an SQL type of query statement, what we had built here. And we just want to then apply the query. Okay. So this is showing us all of our stops where the route headway is less than 25 minutes, right? So what we see in our list, we see it in the map here. We as selected, we also see it in the list. So I'll just expand this out, and you can see that there are 832 stops that are selected out of 2,437 stops. All right. And if I start scrolling out to the right, you can see all of their different variables here. Whether it's a first stop or last stop, 1 is a value for yes, it is the first stop, and 0 is it's not. And same for last stop. The distance from the previous stop, the headways, special generators, amenities, park and ride spaces, observed boardings, estimated boardings, total population, shares of population, shares of employment. All of these variables are available to you to export and also to query from, right? So we can build a more advanced query statement using any of those variables. Okay, so our in part 1 continued, add an additional criteria statement to the query. So we're going to say we want observed boardings that are greater than 40. So I just write in 40 here. 40. And what we need to do is before we add this statement, we need to put an and in here, right? So I'm going to click and, it inserts it in, and then add to query. So our statement reads, headway route less than 25 and observed boardings are greater than 40. Now we can apply the query. So we should filter this down to fewer records. We're at 832. This should be fewer. So yes, 126 meet this criteria. All right, so part 2, view and export the query results. So in the scenario map window, verify the stops selected by the query are highlighted, which they are. Export the query results to Excel. So I'm going to export this out to Excel, and it's going to be the fall 2024 query results. Opens up in Excel. All the attributes that I just had are now in Excel where I can work with them. Okay. Let's say, okay. So while keeping the query tool open, navigate to the Gatorville Transit System in the TBEST Explorer panel. In the MOD zones group filter. So I'm going to just kind of move this over a little bit. Go to my Gatorville mobility area zones. And I'm going to go to MOD zone 6. So MOD zone 6. And I'm going to right click it and open it. So it looks something like this, right? Now my map does. So what this is going to ask me to do is check this apply mobility area spatial filter. And the relationship is that it intersects with this query statement. So we're going to apply both a attribute query and a spatial filter together and apply it. All right, great. So now we are down to 26 records that match that criteria by applying both an attribute and a spatial filter. All right, so let's save this query. Let's say we want to keep this in our rotation and we want to continue to use it. This is going to be, just call it training query. Hit save. And so now over in our mobility areas, or sorry, our query statements, we have our training query, that we can just open at any time. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. I'm going to double click on this and it rebuilds this in. I'm going to apply the query. It reselects the stops. If I add the spatial query, we're right back to where we were very quickly. So, that's kind of the query tool. You can do a lot with it, lots of options for it. And so very useful tool in TBEST that can be input to a lot of different features. Okay, very good. Next topic is bus stop balancing. Any questions?
We do have one new question.
Yeah, will any valid SQLite query work? Maybe on that. I think there's some limitations because it does do some interim tables that aren't SQLite. They're more just basic SQL. So I don't know that you can run some complex SQLite query on it. But most kind of tools would work on it. So it depends on what exactly you would want to do. We have to test it out. And there's probably a way to do it. So yeah, maybe some limitations on that. It depends on exactly what you would want to do. Okay.